And I keep saying to you, an occupier have no right to self-defense. An occupier cannot say they defend themselves. Someone cannot storm your house and then they inflict you with wounds and they say that you were trying to attack them. That can't happen. So I can't understand how pastors who are saying that God is guiding them could stand still. I remember way back in 1977, I was in Toronto, and I stood in a line for about 2 hours to buy some cards because I could not have sent money to the ANC. But I knew wherever there is injustice, I must stand up and say something. And because of that, I stood two lines just to buy some cards for 5 Canadian that this money can end up in some other way to the ANC. And to this day, I'm proud of that because I couldn't go, I couldn't send arms, I couldn't fight, but I was standing on the side of right. And now today, I can proudly say I spent hours in a line in Toronto to get money to the ANC. So when I say a friend asked me yesterday, what do you think about these banners that they are putting up all across the place saying Free Palestine? You do what you could do. You may not be able to go, but you can do what you could do. And that's why anybody who are accessing me on WhatsApp will recognize that for the last 3 months or so, I have that fist in the colors of the Palestinians saying, Free Palestine. My conscience will not allow me to do anything different. It just will not. But this morning, I'm not the issue this morning. This morning, we have with us, and this is the month of the woman or so, and you all recognize that lately I've been putting together a lot of female issues. And this morning I have a lady that is worth mentioning, a lady that we ought to compliment in these lifetimes. And I want to give a very brief bio of her. She is Miss Valdeen Tamara Shears, and she's a mother of 7. She doesn't look it. And grandmother of 2. Again, what she's trying to do. You sure this is true? she is, she is an advocate against gender-based violence and abuse. She's a founder of the All for Bracelets Alert, and she will talk more about that as we go. And she's a special interest body which lobbied for legislative enforcement of GPS tracking bracelet. And that's to think about that in these 2 by 4 countries, it means that she's thinking way above where we are. She's a correspondent victim alert and mandatory counseling for abusers. Michelle is also the founder of the Color Me Orange campaign, a call for action to mobilize others towards lobbying for legislative change aimed at securing mandatory counseling for abusers, their assessment at the courts, and a comprehensive workable batterers intervention program to help break the cycle of abuse. She's an independent senior investigative journalist with 23 years experience working with media in Trinidad and Tobago, and has worked with all 3 daily newspaper of TT, as well as with the now defunct Wire newspaper. Ms. Shears has also written several local, regional, international print and digital publications in public and private sector. And we are happy to have her this morning. Ms. Shears, can I call you Valdi?
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, that's what on your birth paper, right?
That's my name.
so, so Valdi, what drove you, before I get into color me orange and things like that, what really drove you to decide that you want to be an advocate for abused women, for the abuse batters and things like that? What is the motivating factor?
Well, the motivating factor for me had been I survived it,
Oh,
and a lot of persons, a lot of, well, I would say persons, because we have to acknowledge that there are men that face abuse also. So we
mm,
are not saying, while it is predominantly, according to the reports and statistics, that women are the ones facing it more. There are men, and because it's underreported, we don't have the correct data on how many men are in fact facing abuse. But for me, at the time when I was in my journey, I'm a survivor of a 21-year marriage,
When you
which
say a 21-year marriage, you hear what you say, you're a survivor of a 21-year marriage. How do you mean you're a survivor of a marriage?
because most of that 21 years was either acute poverty and abuse.
Oh, okay. So therefore you are saying that. But what would cause you to stay in 21 years, you know? There are people who are being born and die before they get to 21 now, right now, you know. So what could cause a able-bodied person, and then you are a thinker, judging from your bio, you seem to be a very progressive thinker. So what could cause someone like you to stay in a relationship like this for 21 years?
But the thing about it, that is one of the most common questions that any and almost all victims are asked, whether they stayed 3 months or they stayed 10 years or 21 years. And a lot of it goes back to what I didn't know before. As much as I'm forward thinking and I was a member of the media, when I was going through my journey, there were certain elements of abuse I
Wait,
I
wait.
wasn't able.
Hold up. You are saying that while you were in the media writing stories and things, you were being abused?
Yes, uncovering several of the unfortunate demise of women who had been killed
Oh,
in
wow.
domestic violence related murder
So
suicide.
therefore, you are in a situation of domestic violence and somebody got killed. How did that affect you? When you hear that, when you read the story, when you may have covered the story and this person was killed and you are in that said situation, what ran through your mind? What you thought? How
It,
you
it was
cope?
twofold. It was twofold. The first part of it was I could identify with that person's fear. But the second part of it was I was silently speaking out because that was a vehicle for me to start advocacy. And
Okay.
the reason for that is because in my thoughts were, this victim lived in her fear and then died in it, and I didn't want to be that.
So
I wanted to.
therefore you were planning migration.
I was planning my exit strategy a while, but I just didn't have the tools to get out yet.
Oh, okay. So what is this Color Me Orange all about?
The Color Me Orange campaign came about after the ABBA movement, after the law was passed, the electronic amendment bill was passed that now can be accompanying the protection orders. So a victim or survivor can get the protection order along with the bracelet or GPS tracking device placed on the perpetrator or the abuser. After Color Me Orange came out, there's still two clauses on the Color Me Orange campaign, on the ABBA movement, that is now evolved into Color Me Orange. And Color Me Orange evolved when the UN declared orange the color against gender-based violence in 2018. And since then, I've worn a piece or an item or clothing. I wear orange every day since 2018.
I was about to ask you why orange and not black, you know. Color Me Black sound better for me. But I got
But it
I
has
got
a black in it because the black my logo, which was designed by my technical manager, Mr. Jamal Jerome, that black butterfly is a metamorphosis. I did some research into the meaning behind the black butterfly, and that became the logo. But the color, and I'll tell you why orange. Orange on any platform when it comes to that disaster management, or even according to the police, which I recently found out in a training course, um, in terms of being self-aware and not making yourself a soft target. Orange is high up. It means that you are alert, because it starts at white, and white means that you are aimlessly walking around, not aware of anything or your surroundings, and you're a soft target. And then it goes to different colors. Orange is very high up because orange is a loud color. You can't wear orange and not be
I've
noticed.
seen.
So
Okay.
for me, orange shouts, and domestic violence is suffering in silence usually. So it's the color orange is very appropriate because it says, I will be heard.
Well, who are the people behind this? I don't think you are alone.
No, I'm not. I am not alone in Color Me Orange. It started off with, actually it started off with just my technical manager, and I was also my fiance.
Oh, excuse
And
me.
it started off with me deciding I'm going to wear this color. So it would have started before him in 2018 when I decided that I'm going to adopt orange, and I'm going to encourage. The platform of the campaign was to get other persons to wear orange, take a photo, and say, I stand in solidarity against gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, and any form of abuse. And it was launched just before the 16 days against gender-based violence. That it's a UN declared 16 days. It's global. Our country takes part in it, and the UN is very heavily involved in programs and projects to eradicate and eliminate gender-based violence on a whole. So that particular year, I decided I'm going to start to wear orange, and now that team has now increased to my sister Zakia Hines, who is out there on the field with me. If we find a spot, a community event, we set up a table, we give out flyers. That flyer usually has all of the agencies that persons who are facing abuse can get help at.
But I want you to back up a bit because I want you to give somebody some help right now. How could you endure 21 years of abuse and still start a new relationship? I know people who have gone through this and they cannot bring themselves to start a relationship. I know.
Okay.
I know people who went through this and started a relationship with a female instead of continuing with male. I know what situation like that also.
Okay.
So what sort of counseling, what sort of environment that have created this?
Well, first I'd have to say is God, without a doubt,
Yes.
because that's what I held on to. I held on to my spirituality. And
Yeah.
this wasn't going to church, it was relationship with God. It was being angry with God at sometimes, I won't lie, and asking him, what you're waiting on to take me out of this? But it was knowing that I had a purpose bigger than where I was and bigger than what I was facing. And my children were my greatest motivators after God. And then also, I'm just not, my personality is not one to, I can't be a chicken little. I don't know how to be a chicken little. And that comes a lot from my abuser would have formed a lot of my resilience because I had to learn to survive living with him.
Yeah.
So that I don't know anything else but survive it.
Yeah, I hear you. What are some of the burning issues that Color Me Orange is focused on?
So Color Me Orange campaign has basically at least three burning issues, and they're all to do with legislation. The first one I think is very, very critical. That would be assessment of persons at the court level. When a victim or survivor goes in and applies for a protection order, I believe that it is to be able to do the lethality assessment of how dangerous can this abuser be for the victims and children going forward. That needs to be done by professional experts. I'm not saying that they'll be able to determine all, but that could be a trickle-down effect to prevent something further from happening. Because if you assess the abuser, then you can get an idea of where their mindset is. So we can know how lethal is this situation. That's one. The second thing would be mandatory counseling. That's why I spoke about a comprehensive rehabilitative batterers intervention program. This is not
You
about
mean
bashing
you mean
abusers.
counseling for the
The
abuser?
abuser, yes, because our country focuses on counseling the abused. And often two persons get left behind, the secondary witnesses and abusers, which are often the children, and also the abuser. And I'm not saying to, this is not me my campaign and my cause is not about bashing anyone. It's not about bashing men. It's not about bashing the abuser. Because often, this is not to justify abuse, but often we can apply hurt people. And people come from backgrounds where they have unresolved childhood issues, unresolved trauma, and they take it into adulthood and into relationships. If you don't address that, you're leaving that abuser to just find another unsuspecting victim. So the cycle of abuse isn't treated with and it isn't broken. That is why this country needs a batterers intervention program that is looking at rehabilitating abusers.
But there's such a thing as an
Well,
abuser being
I can
rehabilitated.
tell you in the background, there are organizations that are actively pushing and pressing towards that, because I am affiliated with the Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I'm affiliated with the Gender-Based Violence Unit of the TTPS and National Family Service Division, and several other. The UN has been on board to get programs and projects that are aimed at getting those kind of projects off the ground towards looking at that. It's I can tell you, I feel encouraged and motivated compared to when I first started years ago on this advocacy journey, because I'm now seeing I don't feel like a lone voice in the wind anymore, because I'm seeing stuff being done. I'm hearing it. I go to seminars, I do a lot of presentations, and it's with stakeholders up until yesterday morning, with stakeholders who are looking at different ways, even using technology, to be able to address and eradicate abuse and gender-based violence and violence on a whole.
When we speak about stakeholders, you are speaking about actually women who are abused or people who are put in a framework to prevent it.
People who are put in free. There are survivors in the mix, and the reason that the survivors in the mix is crucial is because, like, I'm a mentor with the Hope for Women program, and this is through Dr. Dan Douglas and banking institution. And I can tell you that the culture in the Caribbean, in the region, is not for counseling. The mindset in the region, if you tell someone they need counseling, they often either go into denial or they say, I'm not mad, nothing is wrong with me. That's the common response. So they don't see counseling as it's a cultural thing. But the Hope for Women program was able to work because what they applied to it, what they added to it, was it's not just counseling, it's counseling, mentoring by a survivor. If a victim knows this person walked this road and survived it and can now come out to show you this is where you too can be, it's easier for them to accept counseling, because now they can identify with you as a survivor person.
Yeah. So I'm saying somebody must be listening to me right now, and somebody must be listening and saying, because we're on various platforms, and they were saying to themselves, well, she's speaking this thing so good. I wonder if she understands my situation. How do I walk out of this situation? I want to give us some scenarios. Even you could give a personal scenario if you care to, about how walking out of this situation, how it is done.
Well, it's not easy because, like I said, it took me 21 years, and it wasn't the entire 21 years. It was closer to the last 15 or 10 years, but it was still a long time. And statistically,
I'm not laughing at you, but 15 out of 21.
No, but I'll tell you, for me, Christianity played a large part of it.
Okay.
And I think it's harder for a Christian person because you are built, your mindset is built on the premise of moving by faith and not by sight.
And marriage is forever.
Yes, restoration, not divorce.
No other reason more than that.
Restoration, not divorce. Yes. And all of these things this is in one person's mind. Who am I to condemn? You second guess yourself, because that was one of the things I did. I was in the shelter when I had my conviction was telling me, who am I to condemn my ex-husband? Who am I when Jesus spoke next to the thief on the cross and forgave him? And that held me there again. So there were different factors. A victim goes through so many decision making, and that decision making is clouded by love, loyalty, Christianity. It's clouded by I have nowhere to go, the children, for staying for the children's sake. It's clouded by I love this man still. And maybe God will deliver him next week because I'm praying for that. It's clouded by so much hope. But hope is overshadowed by fear. And God didn't make us with spirits of fear.
Yeah. So you break those, how you break those chains?
How you break those chains strategically and stay alive. It is always about being strategic and seeking help. And you're not seeking the help of persons who you trust. You're seeking the help of persons who can help you get out. And for any victim listening, that is the police. It is still and will always still be the first responders are the police. You can't go through 800 save.
You
can't go through 800 save. You can't go through informing someone from the church, a friend. But if you're in a situation that you need help to get out, my advice to most victims would be, because I walk the road, I understand how you can feel stagnated because you have so much decision, the uncertainty of not knowing what is going to happen after I leave. How do I stay safe? These are the things that are on the forefront of a victim's mind. What the state and all the stakeholders are trying to do and have to do is form a network of protection and hope and something sustainable, a plan, a viable plan for victims. So when I speak to a victim and I tell them, and I try to encourage them to get out and to allow a shelter to give you a chance to breathe. Allow the police to extract you and get you to a shelter. Take a 3 months or 6 months to breathe. Let them help you. But victims and survivors often think that the shelters are restrictive. It feels to them like you're leaving one prison to go into another.
But there's some moving parts here, and you hold your thought. The idea of having children, you had 7 of them, and how did you? I just want to know something practical. How did you do this? That morning when he said enough is enough, what the surrounding days to that morning, and then how are you making this decision now? There are so many of these children to deal with. How did you go about that?
So studies were done and they have shown that victims, survivors and victims often leave the relationship at least up to 7 times, at least, because there's the element of trauma bonding based on the background and the culture and the environment of both the abuser and the abused. And trauma bonding creates a bond between the two. So if that person had unresolved issues and you, the victim or survivor, have the same, it creates that kind of bond that makes the victim feel that you are the person's rescue or the cushion. So it's harder to come out. So that's why the study showed that is up to 7 times a victim actually comes out and goes back. And I can attest to that because I didn't leave. That's why I stayed 21 years. I left, I went back. I left, I went back. I was actually in a shelter. And the first time while I was in the shelter, my abuser and I started to talk about him accepting God. And I caught a glimpse of what I wanted to see.
Yes.
So we started to talk on the premise of greater is he than is me than is in the world. And I got him to pray with me. And I left the shelter one Sunday full of fear, but I went and met him at the church. I didn't know the mindset he had, but I was just praying that this was going to be what I was going to finally be able to say as for me and my household.
So you felt it was answer to your prayer. God had answered
yes,
your prayer.
And that is what a lot of victims and survivors go through. whether they are full Christian or they just have they pray or whatever level of spirituality they're at, is not to condemn the abuser in their mind. And it took me a long while to be able to acknowledge that I was being abused. It took me a while to be able to say, I need to get out. And it took a huge crisis involving my children for me to recognize that I was doing more damage keeping them in a toxic environment for the sake of.
Were they abused? Were they abused, the children?
To
Were
some
they
level,
abused?
yes.
And
To
I'm
some
not talking
level.
about psychological, I'm talking about physically. Did he
Yes,
abuse?
yes, to some level. And that was my, according to Oprah, that was my aha moment. And also I was fortunate enough that my abuser was in prison. So for another unrelated issue, so that gave me the opportunity. And I see this all as God.
Yeah.
That's why I say I'm nothing without God.
Yeah.
And I saw all of this as God held him at bay for me to be able to accept help, for me to be able to seek the help I needed to be able to get out. Because
So it was
prior to
violence
that,
then? So it was
yes,
violence then?
yes, he was very much so. I have physical injuries from I don't like to focus on.
I hear you.
But I mean, there's no shame in it, because for me, at least one is a badge of honor. I have 7 stitches on my forehead from my headbutt.
Oh.
And it reminds me when I look in the mirror of what I survived, of what God did. Because there are so many victims that they stayed victim.
Survived.
Yeah.
There are so many victims who are on the great beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah. You spoke something about sharing. You're sharing this through DVD, through web. How you intend to share we are living in a technological age now. How do you intend to share these experiences? Because the whole world is not listening to us this morning. The whole world, as you know, when people are abused, less information come to them. They are not searching for that information. How do you intend to get this information around?
Well, I am no social butterfly, unfortunately. So there are persons who, if they see me present now, they say, "But where have you been? What?" But I have a lot of presentations, because I started a relationship with the Coalition Against Domestic Violence some years ago when I first started this journey. And since then, they have referred me to several persons or organizations that have asked, do you have a survivor that's willing to speak out? So I have been, I was part of the Spotlight Initiative, or I am still part of the Spotlight Initiative program, which is through the UN. And I was a featured speaker with them. We also have Color Me Orange has its own Facebook page, Color Me Orange TT. It has its own Instagram page, also Color Me Orange TT. And I get a lot of referrals in terms of persons call me and say they know of a victim who needs help, or through organizations. I'm in a lot of chat on WhatsApp, and persons have reached out because I live my cause.
Okay. We're on 2 tracks. Valdeen, we're on 2 tracks. One track is leaving and the other is starting. There's one thing to leave, but there's another thing to start an organization like this. How did you make that bridge?
So Color Me Orange is not a fully registered NGO. We are going to be registered this month end. The starting process has already started, actually. And it just, I am being fueled by the need. My fuel is the need. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't matter if I see certain legislative changes or amendments through Color Me Orange or through another organization. I will back or support that other organization fully. My thing is to address the need and not just lip service or workshops that happen today and then we hear nothing about what happened with that. another part of the Color Me Orange campaign is legislative amendment that now says the same way, the exact same way, that it is mandatory that anyone that knows about child abuse and child sexual abuse report it. I would love legislation to now say that that is so with domestic violence and abuse, because we are often, I mean, a clip of a woman or a man being abused would go viral in minutes, in seconds. But what is the responsibility? Where's the bystander and community responsibility to report it? There's none. And I think that is what could change. You need to take the responsibility off the shoulders of the victim alone to report, because that victim is not moving or operating on a perfect or good normal mindset because of all the elements of what they have to think about. So if we regard a victim or survivor of abuse similarly as we would regard someone with a disability, then we would understand that you can be crippled in your mindset just as if you're in a wheelchair. Because you feel rooted.
Because there are some victims who will say it's okay, you know that.
Or some in denial. He doesn't hit me with this fight, but you are the one with all the bruises and the black eye. You're the one who has to go to the hospital and wear makeup and lie to your family and friends. So that it's an unfair fight. If you put two persons in a ring and it don't match up, even in WWE the weight has to be.
Weight covers, yeah.
You understand? In boxing, the weight has to be.
Yeah.
So if you put two persons, if you put a 6 foot something or almost 6 foot male or female, and you put up a person, it's an unfair fight. It's not matched.
Yeah.
So we need to take the responsibility off of the shoulders of the victims.
How do you handle a situation where the abuser is the breadwinner and there are children, in your case, 7 children? How we handle a situation like that? How can we say to the young lady, leave him? What comes next?
So okay, you see, and for a number of years, that has been one of my pet peeves. The uncertainty of saying, go to a shelter, but not telling me how I'm going to start over. And then one of the most dangerous times for a victim, or survivor, is when they come out. When an abuser loses that sense of control, because the first two common thread in abuse would be control and fear. So when that abuser loses that control factor, that could be the most, I mean, if you read the front line, the front page on anytime someone dies in murder, suicide, or someone dies in a DV related murder, the background story is often that that person was suffering abuse silently for years. You now hear neighbors who say, I don't want to be on camera, but we really used to hear that woman bawling. That man and she always used to be fighting. You hear that? So what we need to do is be able to map, and that is happening now. There are organizations, including the TTPS and the Gender-Based Violence Unit, and a lot of stakeholders is now coming on board now to say we need to provide a more survivor-friendly approach. We need to have a more survivor-friendly map or blueprint. So now you make coming out more attractive for a victim or survivor, and you make going back less appealing. Because if I don't know how I'm going to see about these children on my own, if that person is the breadwinner, then you have to be able to provide for me. How am I going to do it? Because you're not going to, a victim is not going to comfortably think, I will leave, I will go to the shelter for 3 months or 6 months, and then what?
But we have a problem also, even with that, we have a problem with men who are returning to kill. Men staying outside women's job to shoot, when they come out of the offices are shut. We have a situation in San Fernando where he went into the office and shoot the woman. So how you deal with that? How you deal with this?
Well, that is why I had been lobbying, including an online petition for the passing of the Electronic Amendment Bill, which is the GPS tracking device, which now lends some teeth to the protection order. Because if that it now gives the police more of a means of being able to tell if a protection order is being breached. Before, it to many abusers, it was just a piece of paper.
Mhm.
So that is one angle of being able to now none of the nothing is foolproof. Absolutely nothing is
Yeah,
foolproof.
yeah.
So there can be loopholes and ways that we still see some shortcomings in the systems, but it is moving, the trajectory right now is moving towards improving and setting something forward for to make victims now transition into survivors, sustainable survivors. And in the event that there is the mindset, it goes back to change mindset for both parties, both the victim, survivor, and also the abuser. Because you cannot take the victim out and then they go to their job and then they're killed on the job. It means that we didn't address the mindset of the abuser. So now one of the causes of Color Me Orange is to have mandatory counseling for abusers. Mandatory. Let me tell you what and why I say it can happen and it can work. Because I was a court reporter when I was with Guardian newspaper. And during that period when I was a court reporter, I often saw persons coming to a hearing. And I noticed a lot of them had this, sometimes it wasn't one book, it was two books stuck to each other. And
Mhm.
those books were the dates that they had to go to the station to report. When a hearing happens and the magistrate makes a ruling and they say, Mr. So and so, you have to visit the Tunapuna police station every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. That book represents their freedom because their bail can be revoked. So if we apply that same principle to an abuser when a protection order is approved of, you say to that person, you have to take the counseling or you will be in prison. That can act as a deterrent. I believe so, and it could save a life. Because now what it says to that person, the abuser, is if I don't do this, I could go to jail. And
Yeah.
somewhere along the line, I believe that if you don't get to change the mindset of 20,000 persons who may be abusers, you might get to change one or two. And that's what comes
Before
to me.
before I speak about demographics, I want to, well, Alex say give us 2 more minutes, so 2 extra minutes. So I'll ask him if Alex can we open the line. Alex, can we open the line now for anybody want to converse
Yep,
with Valdeen?
absolutely. Let's do that. 622-4911, of course, the number to call in to chat with Pastor Brown and guests. We have some time, so feel free to call in, and Pastor, you may continue.
Okay. The before what I said, something I said. Okay, you wrote this book. What is this book about? And I want you to not only tell me what the book is about, but guide my listeners if they would like to have that book.
Okay, so the title of my book is called Free from Mental Bars. When God first inspired me to write the book, it was years ago while I was still there. This would have been in 2012, I believe. And it was titled From Behind Mental Bars because I was still there. When I was able to get out, the title changed to Free from Mental Bars. And it is a partial look at my spiritually surviving abuse. It does have some scripture in it, but it is my encouragement to victims and survivors that say that you are not alone, that says that domestic violence and abuse is a crime, and that you do have the right to be heard. You do have the right to want to seek justice in the courts, and that you do have the right to a life free of violence. That
We
is,
have a
in a
caller here,
nutshell, what
Pastor.
my book is
we
about.
have a caller, Valdeen.
Let's take this. Hello, good morning. Welcome.
Good
Hello,
morning.
morning, sir. Morning, Mr. Alex and Pastor Brown. Morning, and
Morning.
morning to the young lady. A very good program. I just want to ask one question. Are you getting a feedback, by the way?
No feedback on this.
All right, very good. Yeah, it's very interesting topic. I just want to ask if this domestic violence which men are perpetrating against women, if it have anything to do with the rise of the women's liberation and feminism and women becoming independent women and they could do their own thing, and if that have anything to do with it, and if we can do something to correct that side of the equation so we could end domestic violence once and for all. Thank you very much for the time.
That is an interesting question, but I will tell you why it can be connected, but it is not fundamentally connected, and I'll tell you why. On the broader side of it, you have a point when you said, or when you ask if there's a connection to feminism and women being strong, independent women, and that because it's trending. And the connection, it can be, and it doesn't necessarily have to be. And I'll tell you why. Because the premise of being an abuser is control. And this is unhealthy control. That we're not talking about in a marriage, as you said, a woman who is saying, I's my own woman, I could do my own thing. We're not talking about that. And we're not talking about situational or circumstantial abuse, in the sense of when COVID-19 happened and persons lost their job, when we were told as of midnight tonight, and it led to a lot of frustrating situations in the home. So domestic violence could have stemmed, cases could have increased, and I think it did, because we now had frustrated persons who couldn't pay the bills facing eviction, and someone who could have been a lamb went to being a lion, and that could have led to situational abuse. But that was people facing crisis, as opposed to someone who thinks or sees their spouse as property to control and to keep tabs on, and to say you cannot go here and you have to check in here, you can't go there, you can't wear this, you can't. That's totally different. So it would be a little bit too much to apply feminism to as a contributing factor for abuse, because there's nothing that could justify abuse on no level.
All right. Those who are, if you are not on Victorious Lifestyle platform, I will not see your questions. If you're on the radio station platforms or even on Facebook with me, you have to be on YouTube with me for you to see your questions and ask Valdeen. So I want to say, what if a woman? I want to put our three questions together I got from the platform. If a woman is being beaten and she's staying there for 21 years, then she's deserving of this risk. That is one person says.
I heard that already. Like she liked the licks.
Yeah.
I heard that one.
So the other is that would you say that victims right now are receiving real help? And if your answer is no, what do you suggest real help to be? So we have two. One saying you're there all these years. If after 21 years of risks should be normal to you by now, and you need to do something. And the other is saying, if you feel victims of domestic violence, if they are receiving the care that they should, and if not, what do you suggest the care should?
So to answer the first question about 21 years you stay, so you should have just stay some more.
Yeah.
So to answer that, I will say that love do come with licks. I mean, if the person had been listening from the start, they would have heard me talk about trauma bonding and all of the elements. That is why my book is called Free from Mental Bars, because I was in a mental prison. I mean, the songwriter Bob Marley say, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. And that's true, because our mindset is what determines our decision making. I can't make a conscious decision if my mind is bombarded with all of the factors that would affect my children or would affect my community, because I have brothers who ask me, why you didn't tell us? And I said, because I was so afraid of him. I knew what he was capable of, and I thought that would be meted out to them also. I was fearful for them. I was afraid for myself and everybody around me. That was the mindset I had. That is how crippling fear can be in a situation with domestic violence. So to say she stayed because she liked the licks, there's no victim that wants to stay a victim. None. Absolutely none. Even if on the surface, the man cuss you out today and tomorrow all you're walking on the road holding hands, bet your bottom dollar that victim is crying inside. It is a show. It is a mask. It is a facade they put on. And because I wore a mask for so many years, I can tell you. And studies also show that 1 in every 3 women faces abuse. So if you put yourself in a maxi at 23-seater maxi and do the mathematics of every 3 persons, there are persons who are smiling in your right in the congregation that are facing abuse at home. So it's not a matter of the victims liking it.
I see we have about 1 minute more. So
okay, and the other question to answer
not only the other question, I want you to wind up talking about the book, talking about how people can get help, comprehensive thing. So I'll give you a minute to do it.
Okay, so you can get the book through me, through myself, and through my team. My number is 364-1523. So you can get the book, you can contact us, you can send an email to colormeorangettt@gmail.com. You can also get it at Ishmael M. Khan and Sons at Lower Henry Street in Port of Spain. It is carried there. It will be soon carried at other bookstores. You can also, for victims and survivors, I need you to understand that you're not alone. There is help out there. And that kind of answers the second question you had asked. Yes, there is help out there. It's not perfect. It is evolving in a positive manner, however, for the kind of projects that are underway and the persons working behind the scenes to eradicate and eliminate violence and abuse against women and girls.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So all I can finish by saying to any victim or survivor listening, all I can say is, again, I can reinforce you are not alone. Walk into any station. Let your voice, please do not continue to suffer in silence. Because I also want you to know that the Domestic Violence Act has now been amended so that a parent can now have the parent that is not doing the abuse, that is not committing the crime, can also have a protection order taken out against them. The children could be removed from the home through Children's Authority.
We gotta go. Why you have generated a lot of interest? We gotta go until sometime. Trinidad and Tobago, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, we have been speaking to Ms. Valdeen Tamara Shears this morning, and she is the founder of Color Me Orange. And you can go back to this platform and you can hear it over again and you can make the contact because you gave a number. Until that time, God bless. Bye-bye, everybody. Alex, thank you very much, and may God bless you and your family.
Goodbye.
Every Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. right here on Talk City 91.1 FM.
Who lets you really talk about it all day long? That's right. Talk City.